This is a game that I've covered quite extensively on this channel. I've put out a video for all 3 demos, and now this video for the full review makes 4. As I've said before, I'm not really up on my Final Fantasy lore at all. I've played and completed Final Fantasy VII Remake and Final Fantasy XV, but that's pretty much where my knowledge begins and ends, besides some minor details here and there. So what attracted me to this game? If I'm not really into Final Fantasy, why did I decide to play and review this game specifically? Well, when it was first revealed, it was shown and marketed as a bit of a Souls-like, and that's something that speaks to me personally, so I just decided to keep it on my radar. Then I played the first demo and quickly realized that it was being built on the exact same systems as the Neo games, which, by the way, I absolutely love. Basically everything was lining up and pointing towards Stranger of Paradise being something that I would enjoy, even though Final Fantasy isn't a series that I have much history with. But now, after beating the game, I have to say I did have quite a good time with it, and on top of that, it's actually inspired me to look into and learn more about the Final Fantasy series. Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is an action RPG that serves as a reimagining of Final Fantasy I. As far as I'm aware, it's technically considered an alternate universe prequel to Final Fantasy I, and as such would not be considered canon. The game does feature some Souls-like elements, but these systems are very light, and depending on the difficulty setting that you choose to play on, the game does feel quite different. You can choose between story mode, action mode, or hard mode, with a 4th chaos difficulty being unlocked when you complete the main questline. Selecting story mode will cause the gameplay to function a lot more like a hack and slash title. You don't need to worry too much about getting hit, and enemies will feel much weaker. The higher the difficulty that you select, the more Souls-like the game is going to feel. A more difficult setting is going to require you to play more carefully, learning what the enemies can do, and then reacting accordingly. Things like finding the next checkpoint will matter far more because you'll probably die many more times on the harder difficulty settings. Every system and mechanic becomes more and more relevant and essential the higher you climb on the difficulty scale. So if you just want to casually hack through some monsters and get showered in loot drops like Diablo, you can do that. But if you want a more focused and challenging experience that borrows a few ideas from the Souls games, the game's got you covered in that respect as well. You play as Jack, a straight-to-the-point kind of man who's seemingly obsessed with wanting to find and kill chaos. You're joined by Ash and Jed on your initial adventures, but you'll soon run into a couple of other party members. It's pretty much impossible to talk about the story without spoiling something or giving you some information that really doesn't make sense without the wider context, so I won't delve into it here. If you do want some more info on it, I would just recommend that you download the demo and give that a try. It gives you the opening cutscene, and after playing through the full game, I can confirm that the demo is literally the opening missions of the full release, so yeah, if you're curious, give that a go. Do keep in mind that it's only available until April 18th, 2022. Gameplay-wise, it works very much like Neo. You're given an overview of a world map, and then you select your missions from there. Some of the missions do get remixed into shorter side quests which you can unlock later, and you can access a blacksmith from the menus in order to dismantle your unwanted gear. The missions and levels are mostly linear in terms of exploration, but you can find some hidden areas, alternate routes, and the ever so satisfying shortcuts. If you ever see a closed door near the start of a mission, you can bet that it'll say it doesn't open from that side. You'll be fighting through various corridors and rooms, solving simple puzzles, looting truckloads of gear, and of course taking down bosses. Once again, anyone who's familiar with Neo will understand exactly how the loot works in Stranger of Paradise. At the end of every mission, you're absolutely flooded with loads of different weapons, chest pieces, shields, boots, and more. You'll need to search through the items you've picked up and equip the best ones for the job. And as you'd probably imagine, each weapon and piece of gear has a ton of stats to keep track of, and of course certain sets of armor work better for specific jobs and provide a better bonus. Speaking of jobs, instead of selecting a class in Stranger of Paradise, it uses a job system. Each job is basically its own class with its own skill tree, and filling out these skill trees can unlock more advanced and expert jobs. Basic jobs usually only allow you to use one type of weapon. For example, the Ronin job only allows the use of the katana swords. But the advanced and expert jobs allow you to choose from a small selection of different weapons. In this game, the XP that you earn from killing enemies doesn't go to you, it goes to the job that you have equipped. Each job can be leveled up to 30, and at that point it will be considered mastered. Jack can have 2 jobs equipped at any one time, and you can switch between them on the fly, even during combat at the press of a button. Jack will also have 2 completely different loadouts for each of the jobs that you have equipped, which means that each time you switch the jobs on the fly, the entire outfit will change as well. You can even increase the job's affinity, which provides further bonuses and makes specific jobs even more efficient and potent. A lot of the weapons and gear you discover will actually have an affinity bonus tied to them as well. It's shown here as the job symbol followed by a percentage. The higher you can get a job's affinity, the more passive bonuses you'll be able to activate. Also, it's worth noting that you'll be able to fully equip and gear up each and every party member however you see fit. They can each only have one job equipped at a time, and they only start with one, but you'll unlock more of them as you progress. As you fight, you'll be increasing your maximum MP. MP is the pink bar below your health bar, and those segments are used to activate all of your skills and spells. When you start a mission, you only have a maximum MP of 2 segments, but as you progress through the level and kill enemies, your maximum MP will increase. On the higher difficulties, this increase is lost when you die, but you can enable casual mode to stop this from happening if you want to. Skills are obtained by leveling up jobs and spending the job points you gain on the job skill tree. You do of course have your standard combos, but ending a combo with a skill can hit for big damage. The skills you learn can be placed at various points in a combo string, allowing you to customize exactly when and where certain skills and attacks will activate. You can even absorb a spell or skill that your opponent has used against you and throw it right back at them. I mean, you've got combos, parries, follow-ups, buffs, spells, skills, and so much more to mess around with. There is an absolute ton of options, and the game allows you to take on enemies and play the way you want to. There's also an online co-op mode that allows a group of up to 3 players to enjoy the game together. Now of course you don't have to use this feature at all if you don't want to, but it is another option that's open to you. So after producing 4 videos and beating the game, did I actually like it? Well, I think it does have some issues that are sort of inescapable, but overall, yeah, I'd say I really enjoyed it. You know, some games like Elden Ring are, widely praised for their quality. Well, I think Stranger of Paradise will just be widely accepted as an alright game. I've seen a lot of different opinions out there and review scores for it, and they seem to range from around 6 to 8 out of 10 now. You guys know that I don't really do review scores for various reasons, but I can absolutely understand those numbers. I don't think the game sits in the 9 out of 10 territory, but at the same time I don't really think it sits at an average score of 5 either. So when I see 6s, 7s or 8s, I do kinda get it. I did actually get quite a few comments on my demo videos. The constant and consistent complaint that I heard from other players was that the visual quality was just not up to standard. And after playing the full game from beginning to end, do I agree with those complaints? Well, honestly, yeah, I do. It does kinda hurt to say it because I do like the game, but those graphics are really quite disappointing. I mean, you couldn't deny it if you wanted to. Sure, opinions are a thing, and my channel is based on accepting and respecting multiple opinions, but man, those visuals make it hard to argue. I don't even think it's a matter of does it look bad. I think it's more like, yes, it definitely looks bad, but how much does that bother you, if you see what I mean? For me personally, I wasn't overly bothered by it, and after a while I just kinda accepted that it didn't look great and just enjoyed the gameplay. On the other hand though, it's going to be a wall that some players just aren't willing to climb over. Now of course you could disregard those people as any number of things, but I genuinely think they have a fair point. If the game looks that bad in their eyes and they choose not to pick it up because of that, well, that's going to translate into a lost sale. Originally I thought that the gameplay would be the only saving grace to be found in Stranger of Paradise, considering how it looks and the weird confusing story. However, now that I've finished the game, I'm actually pretty happy with how the story ended up playing out. I can't actually tell you about it, but some of the reveals and twists were honestly pretty cool, although they kinda saved it all up for the last hour of the game, unfortunately. Jack isn't exactly charismatic, and the supporting cast doesn't really do or mean much until the very end. I was definitely interested though, and I did actually want to know more about all of the characters, but it really gives you next to nothing until it flips the switch and all is revealed. I guess as far as my experience goes, I found the intro to be quite interesting, the middle to be confusing, and the ending to be really quite good. So overall, I suppose I enjoyed the story, but it is a little bit uneven throughout. I've said this in all of my other videos, so I won't go too far into it here, but the high point of the game is without a doubt the combat. Now I want to be completely honest and transparent. I played this on the story difficulty setting with casual mode enabled because, as I said before, I prefer this game as a somewhat easy hack and slash action game as opposed to a difficult Souls-like experience. I actually finished Elden Ring a day or two before I started playing Stranger of Paradise, and I just frankly didn't want another tough game to play through at that point in time. However, this game, unlike From Software's titles, does feature a difficulty selection, as I mentioned earlier. So if you're looking for a more challenging gameplay experience, you can tailor the settings to suit your needs. I felt like the controls were snappy and responsive, and if you've ever played Nioh, I can tell you that it feels near enough the same, at least to me. It felt so similar at times that it felt like I was playing a Neo game with a Final Fantasy skin. I'm pretty sure that I recognize some of the attacks and animations from Neo as well from time to time. The moment-to-moment gameplay and the combat overall really does feel fun to be a part of, and I especially like the flashy Soul Burst move that finished the enemies off. I imagine that some people might not be a fan of them, but I personally love them. I actually have a decent Samsung soundbar attached to my TV, and I love the sounds that performing the Soul Burst produces. I use this phrase a lot, but it genuinely has very good audio-visual feedback. Combat in this game just creates that addictive and satisfying feeling during every moment of every fight. It's frankly kinda brilliant, and for me it just makes up for the disappointing visuals. Lastly, I just want to touch on the job system. I think it's a great way to have clear-cut classes and builds in your RPG, but also at the same time give you complete freedom. Some games do give you a lot of freedom, but not really in the same way. They often have you respecing or something similar, but in Stranger of Paradise you simply just equip a new job and off you go. You don't even really need to do much more than that, but you can if you want to. You can absolutely min-max your builds for every single job if that's what you want to do, but you don't need to or have to. You can just switch things up whenever you want and try something new, which I found to be very engaging. Also, the skills and spells you learn from the job skill trees felt really strong, fun to use, and actually helpful during combat. In my opinion, Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is a great game to play, but not really that good to look at. It has some issues with contrast, lighting, saturation, and pretty much everything visually. The character models are a bit lackluster and the environments aren't much to write home about, but luckily for me, the gameplay more than makes up for all of it. If you've decided to pass on the game due to the graphical quality, then I do 100% understand that position and criticism. Ultimately, I think that the game is going to be very hit and miss with virtually everyone who comes into contact with it. Some people will hate how it looks and not even give it the time of day, or other people will hate how it looks but still pick up the game and enjoy it regardless, plus every other variation you could think of. As always, I can't tell you if you're going to like this game, but what I can say is that for me, this was a fun and worthwhile experience despite the obvious and dated visuals. If you enjoyed the video, I really hope you'll consider subscribing, and if you like what I do and want to help support the channel, please check out the first link in the video description down below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.